Greetings and salutations, Tube Dwellers! Welcome back to the long-lost Starcraft! I know it must seem like forever since I've put a Starcraft video out. It feels that way from my perspective, too. Note, right before I get into anything, the Heart of the Swarm beta has been released for certain people. I have not got a beta key yet, but I have two different beta profiles, my two different accounts, up to date and ready to receive if Blizzard would but endow me with that opportunity. I very seriously hope they do. I'm very excited to see it. It looks like since the last release of balance information, which went into that Heart of the Swarm custom map that I did a video on a little while ago, they've changed the balance quite a bit from that, and things are a little less imba. Before, all the new stuff was basically just way overpowered. Especially things like the Swarm host. They've quieted a lot of stuff down, and they've made a couple changes too, just from the videos I've been seeing on YouTube. Husky even has a Liquid Sheth matchup already. Husky Starcraft, that is. You should definitely go watch it. It's not against another pro player, but it's still kind of an interesting match. It's kind of a quickie. Can't wait to see more of those. Anyway, let me stop delaying and let's get into the match I'm going to bring you today. Of course, it's going to be between me on my primary account, the Mad Bag, meaning I will be playing Protoss, even though it says my most played race is random. That's because of team games. You'll notice this season I've played quite a few games. There have been a lot of seasons go by that I haven't even played a full 100 games. So, you know, I'm getting up there. Here in, is this Season 8? I think this is Season 8. My opponent is going to be a fellow Diamond player, Skillganon, the Zerg. So let's get this party started, shall we? We are spawning on the map Ohana LE. Your Protoss champion is up here in the top left corner, the Mad Bag. And Skillganon, the Zerg challenger, in the bottom right corner. This is a 1 versus 1 map. It's probably one you're very familiar with if you play any ladder matches at all. Natural's got a nice small choke. There's a backdoor rock, but that doesn't really come into effect early on, unless the Protoss is using it to separate a Zerg from his third base, if the Zerg hasn't taken that rock out yet. Which is somewhat common, my pylon placement, indicating, of course, that Forge Fast. Forge Fast Expand, arguably the best way to open macro against Zerg. I say arguably because there are professional players like Liquid Noni, who still open one base. He'll do a gateway core opening just about every game. A lot of times he will expand off one gate. Sometimes he'll go to 3 gates and then expand. Every now and then he'll still do some kind of tech play on one base before expanding. Directly after putting that pylon down, I am going to scout over here to my drone buddy. We see that Skillganon's not doing anything cheesy. He's just getting that drone count up. Your 14 or 15 pull normally comes down just before 2 minutes. Your 15 hatch before pull would come down at about 2:15 most of the time. Maybe as early as 2:10. I don't know if he's doing mineral stacking right and whatnot. So I go down here. I see that there's not even a drone waiting. So I come back up. I didn't see the spawning pool on the first go, and I do see it now. And I see the timing on the spawning pool. Am I going to yank him off? Oh boy. I might not get this block if he gets enough money. I think I might just be in time. Ah, no, he's going to get it. Oh, I don't know. It's going to be close. He's coming up on 300. Oh, and he just gets it right in front of me. So it looks like since I saw pool first, I am going to go Forge. And I'm going to go ahead and get this pylon so I can continue probe production while I wait to get enough money to slap my Nexus out. Depending on what I was seeing, it looks like this is done. I didn't come back in here to see if he was building any Zerglings, which is not great. If you can, you want to stick around, and you want to see if right when the pool finishes, if an egg appears, because that indicates that he was saving a larva and made it into a Zergling instead of a drone. If he makes a Zergling, you want to get this cannon before the Nexus. If he doesn't make a Zergling, you want to just delay the cannon. You want to get that Nexus down as soon as possible, and then get the cannon. It looks like I wasn't watching real close, but I did what I would argue is the optimal way, just getting that Nexus out a little faster. A lot of times, even when a Zerg goes pool first, you can get away with going Nexus first, because by the time this Overlord gets up here, he's already past that choice where he may want to build Zerglings or he may not want to build Zerglings. So a lot of Zerg players default to not building Zerglings just so they can take as much of an economic lead as possible. And here you see me following up with the gateway. I'm sure very soon after I'll be whipping out at least 1 gas, likely 2. It might be 1 gas this time. Whenever I do a 1 gas, it almost always indicates that I'm going to try to do a very early gateway pressure, like a 4 gate, directly after my expansion here. The 4-gate requires that I chrono boost very heavily on my cybernetics core, and it means that I can do a smaller pressure a little bit earlier than most Zergs expect. Most Zergs expect something of a 5 to 6 gate. If I don't get this other gas, it means I'm just wanting to get heavy minerals and get these gateways up as quick as possible, and I want to do a zealot heavy pressure before his roaches come out. A lot of times Zerg players won't add the roaches until they're ready to go up to a lair, which will be later around like the 8:30 to 9 minute mark. Actually, they'd probably start the lair around the 8-minute mark, maybe even as early as like 7:30, 7:45. But that zealot pressure, a lot of times I won't add the roach horn on until then. That zealot pressure should come in a lot earlier. Hopefully I'll be doing warp ins, you know, no later than the 8-minute mark. And here I am getting the gas a little bit later. That indicates that I likely want to do a robo follow-up. The robo is the best way to follow up any kind of gateway pressure. A lot of players you'll see go robo right after the core without even adding more gates, just so they can get the observer out and likely start getting some immortals underway. Roaches are so easy to mass for Zerg that it's really easy for them to mass roaches, and if the Protoss doesn't have a fair number of sentries and at least an immortal or two, then mass roach can just really dominate basically anything a Protoss does. If the Protoss is doing Stargate stuff, a lot of times you can just mass roach barrel right in the front and do enough damage that even if his air units are focused on your roaches, you'll come out on top of the fight. So that's something to really be cautious of. It looks like this zealot poked out. I went down to the bottom Zelnaga tower. He saw it. He ran a Zergling away from it, but I didn't actually kill anything. So that wasn't direct pressure, but it was kind of like indirect pressure that would have hopefully made him make some Zerglings. It doesn't really look like he did that, though. Another thing the zealot allows is it allows me to take his map vision away for just long enough to sneak a probe out. And this probe is very well timed with what looks like it was probably his 3rd or 4th overlord coming up to check on my 3rd. His overlord already crossed this path by the time my probe came out, so you can see from his vision he doesn't know anything about this pylon. And this pylon will line up perfectly with my pretty early pressure here. So you see a chrono boost hitting. It's only got another 20 seconds, so yeah, it appears that I should be able to start switching these over right at about 8 minutes, and I'll be able to do a warp in here. And hopefully we'll see this push out occur right now. Yeah, and sure enough, here I go. I want to start asserting my map presence, and then I want to do these warp ins before he starts getting army. Now you'll notice on the production tab he's still making drones. The Zerg wants to get up to at least 50, if not a few more. If you sniff out early pressure like what I'm doing, you want to stop maybe even a little earlier than 50. You can see he's 10 drones up on me. But he needs to start cranking out army immediately, and you see he's starting to do that now. Some Zerglings, but you'll notice that his Roach Warren is only just completing. So my timing could be a little bit earlier, but it's not bad. And it looks like I did start with a first round of plenty of stalkers. It looks like I'm getting a lot of zealots. If this push happens before roaches come, you should go really zealot heavy, and you can do amazingly huge damage sticking on zealots. By the time he gets roaches out, you either need to use the zealots to do all the damage you can and then stop warping in and stop doing the pressure, or you need to retreat with what you've made and again stop doing the pressure. The roaches really end this pressure. A lot of times you can continue to push into like the first round of roaches. It really just depends on how your positioning is and what your composition is, what you're able to keep alive. Right here I'm able to keep a whole lot alive, and it looks like I've got one more group of stalkers coming in. So far I've only killed roaches, or Zerglings, so this isn't the greatest pressure. There's a queen, that's kind of nice. That'll slow his production a little bit, but I haven't really killed drones until now. I'm just now getting a zealot into his drone line, and so I'm just now starting to pull him down into my account. Now, I kind of like using this ramp, however, I don't like committing this much. This ramp's a great choke to use to abuse Zerg units because they can't get a good surround on you. However, getting in the base like this means that these units are for sure going to die. This means that I have sacrificed these units to doing whatever damage they can accomplish. And here he's got a big enough count on me that I can't really fight directly. I do focus another queen, which is pretty good. Let's see how many drone kills I can come out of this with. Right as my stalkers go down, they're getting a good number of drone kills here. Let's look overall. I killed 11, which puts us real close to being even. But now this roach production is kicking in that I was talking about. It looks like I do see it. And I do see a lot of things like, you know, that he's got just the one Evo. I guess I haven't looked around, so I can't say that conclusively. But I see a lot of times Zerg players will put both their evolution chambers together. So if you see one by itself, a lot of times it's okay to assume that he's going to be going really heavy into production and not really heavy into upgrades. Personally, I like doing the double Evo style with this and getting carapace and ranged at the same time. But you can go this style too. It just requires that you get a lot of roaches very fast and push with them. So you see that the robo follow-up for me is well underway. I've already got one immortal out, and I'm trying to keep a high sentry count here. I've got a fair number of stalkers. It looks like both of us are dealing with a ridiculous bank too. I hate to see that. I guess my infrastructure is just coming up. I'm getting the Twilight Council so I can progress in my upgrades. It looks like I did accomplish 1 damage before him. Actually, that might have been close to about the same time. He's finally getting ling speed now. And with these immortals and with a decent sentry count, this isn't great. To do this push, you want ideally about 8 sentries, but that first pressure I did was very stalker heavy, so I spent a lot of my gas there. And you see I'm not keeping my minerals low, I am keeping my gas low. So I suppose the gas timings that I took here, which I didn't observe, those could have been better. I probably could have done the gas timings a little bit earlier. So army count, it looks like we're really even on the cost. He's got a lot more food, but it's because he's so roach heavy. 20 roaches, only 10 zerglings. Zerglings would actually do really good against this because I have such a low sentry count. Zerglings force a crap ton of force fields just because they can slip between them so easily. You got to really bump your force fields up against each other for them to still be effective. But it looks like he's really roach heavy, which might be good for me given that I do have 2 immortals and I've got a really high stalker count for this push. So then the Zerglings come in, he forces an immortal down immediately. In the beginning of this wasn't the greatest engagement for me, but those were decent force fields, and it put me in a position where I could fight him favorably. We didn't really battle there. I like to see that I'm doing this expansion, so this is a very heavy pressure push, but it's not really an all-in. That was kind of a supply cap, not really. Oh my god, he's making 22 roaches at once. Wow, he's still got 10 larvae, and he's still got plenty of money once he gets the food to keep this production strong. Now I did get another immortal reinforcement here, so I'm back up to 2 immortals, and if I can get a nice position like my forces here, forcing him through a choke like this, then I think I could still have a favorable engagement. Oh, but he's up to almost 50 roaches. There's more popping out as we speak. This isn't the greatest position, but I've got just enough force fields to still make it work, and I'm getting some chipping damage done on him. The losses show that he's a good 1,000 above me, but with this critical mass that he's getting, it'll be really easy for him to do some sick damage. It looks like some zealot harassment off this far pylon has done a good bit of damage to his hatchery, and I'm reinforcing off this pylon to keep my army count strong. I like how I've got a backup pylon too in case that one goes out, very close to the same distance. This is finally up. I am starting to resume probe production, which is good to see. That keeps this from being an all-in. That allows me a follow-up option. And I'm keeping those upgrades flowing. It is only 2, whereas he's getting 2 armor and damage at the same time. I keep catching him in this kind of nice choke. And he's just barreling in right now. That is as unideal as possible. You can see I'm keeping his army count just below mine, at least in overall value. And here's what I was talking about with these rocks. If the Zerg doesn't commit to taking those out early, you can really abuse this front ramp. If he takes those out, he could easily hit you from this side, split his roaches in half, and come around to this side real fast. And it would make you spit out about twice as many force fields as you would want to. So I keep getting decent engagements on him. Honestly, when you see an army that is this low on zealots and that is this low on sentries, I'm getting a decent sentry count up now. I do have that 8 that I talked about earlier. When you see it originally that low, though, you really want to try to skew heavy towards Zerglings. Especially, I like it, just zoning force fields, not necessarily trapping anything, but just making sure that not all of his roaches can engage at once. And I've got the sentry count now that I can kind of abuse force fields even in kind of open areas. What I was going to say, though, is especially with this many hatches, he's got 2 macro hatches. Uh-oh. It looks like the way you position those might be a little less than ideal for these eggs. Are all of these going to get stuck here? No way, I got to see this. This could have been a huge factor in this game. I just want to see some of these hatch. They're actually not hatching. They're stuck at full production because he doesn't have anything. Oh, and it looks like I missed this getting taken out. A zealot harassment, which I'm really bad at keeping eyes on. A zealot harassment did that, and it looks like while I'm pushing into that 4th, I'm coming into the main with some stalkers. I want to focus the roach warren down. That's a beautiful idea. Even though I just said something counterintuitive to that, and I do get the roach warren, I just said he should be going heavy on zealots, which is true. I mean zerglings, which is true. But taking the roach warren really takes away the option that he's oh, that was poor. The option that he's most vested in. Oh, I like that though. Right down to the low ground where I can continue to harass him. And it looks like I might be doing some multi-pressure over on this side. So I love that I'm splitting him thin, and oh yeah, I'm keeping his army count low, and I'm keeping good retention. I'm not losing a lot of forces. Here he gets in on me pretty good, but I don't think this is even his whole army, is it? This isn't, well, of course it's not. He's got so many eggs there. That was such a huge factor in this game. I hadn't even realized how much of his army was stuck over there in production. He technically has 80 Zerglings in production. Most of that is because it got stuck. He would have actually been really well off sacrificing even as much as this base to bring his whole army up into his base and attack one of these hatcheries to kill it and let all these guys free, because that was huge. That was a huge amount of food, a huge amount of money. He did have a huge bank too, so I don't know. I can't say anything. My bank was getting up there, and let's see how many gates I was working off of. I was on 8 gate before I had my third up, so it looks like I went up to 11 and still wasn't quite able to spend my money trying to max out. Of course, I didn't keep the robotics facility constant, and I wasn't going up to any kind of robo or Templar tech. I was just keeping these upgrades boosting on one forge. A couple things could have been done better, but it looks like the little bit of an opening and then the consistent pressure and the unit retention. Let me walk away from him there. Not to mention, oh man, this would be maddening. If I rewatch this, I would just, I wonder how many eggs are like right there. I wish I could deselect all these others. Altogether there's a lot of Zerglings ready to pop though. Honestly, this 80 Zergling pop, especially if you could have got the ones out of there, I don't know, it probably wouldn't have done anything to this, especially since I still have quite a bit of force field energy. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We're gonna take a quick look at the score screen, and then I'm gonna bounce. Bit ounce. Overall score, fairly close, about 10k off. Average unspent, yeah, his bank stayed way higher than mine. My bank was still plenty higher than it should have been. His resource collection was higher than mine too, so that kind of levels out. He was collecting faster, so he didn't necessarily have to be spending faster. Built 110 workers just about. My number was a little less than ideal, especially considering that third base. Units trained and units killed. He barely killed anything. I killed a crap ton. That is the story of Protoss versus Zerg. Graphs show that in this early little pressure, and this little dip is what I'm talking about, when I committed and went into his main, I committed those units to be lost, and that is generally not a great idea. I did get a pretty good amount of drone kills when I went in there, and I was killing roaches the whole time, so I kind of kept his army count low as well, but his production, you see, kind of took off right there. But this is when my extra gateways caught in and when my immortals started coming out, and then this is where you see me start to engage him and maintain really good unit retention, which is really important as Protoss against Zerg. Maintaining those units, all of your units are very expensive tech units basically. You got to retain everything. Whereas, like, you know, Terran versus Zerg, you want to retain your siege tanks, of course. You can kind of afford to hemorrhage Marines in a lot of situations. There's not really much Protoss can afford to hemorrhage. Very small amounts of Zealots, and that's about it. His resource collection was baller. He was on top of me all the way through. But I was just getting the right timings with getting my army on the field and over to his base, right as his economy was hitting the right peak points. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. See you later.